Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth in terms of understanding the pattern of dysfunction in a covert narcissist relationship. What does the dynamic look like? Who are the players? Who is the cast of characters in this relationship? And how does a covert narcissist perpetuate and create a codependency or dependency, an unhealthy dysfunction in this relationship, particularly typified through enmeshed boundaries, lack of boundaries, loss of independence, and loss of self in those people who find themselves really essentially in a victim status with these types of individuals. When we look at the dynamic of the covert narcissist, essentially it is someone who is stating in perhaps unconscious, subconscious, or few words, I need you to take care of me. I have unmet needs. I need someone to take care of me. And so then this individual then finds others who are willing or hitherto unwilling participants to take care of this individual and their unmet needs. Either to be, someone who is there to pick up all the loose ends, do the dirty work, be the leader in their life, to pick up the loose slack, to bring the friends to the table, to bring the religion to the kids, to handle the household finances, to do the cleaning, to do the cooking. Really a very sort of division of roles becomes very clear and deep in the covert narcissist. And they basically then are able to shrink away or withdraw then while this other person fulfills their end of the deal, fulfills their end of the bargain, is then the one who then adheres to and then takes responsibility and accountability for this long list of responsibilities and dependency needs, or getting their needs met. And in turn, the agreed upon feeling is, I feel good about myself while fulfilling your needs. So I derive my feeling of self-esteem or my value of self, feeling good about myself, by how well I meet your needs. My I am is not defined on anything about me, authentically me, as I exist as a separate and distinct person with boundaries and standards, but it's in turn defined by how well I satisfy your needs. And so this is that external locus of control that we discuss here, and how that is detrimental and destructive to you in the relationship, and how fulfilled, how happy you end up becoming and growing into in the relationship, because it cannot simultaneously exist. If your needs aren't being met, acknowledged, or validated, particularly the needs for autonomy and independence, this becomes a scowled on experience. The supply individual, the support individual, the codependent, the one who's having their boundaries enmeshed and violated, extinguished, or terminated, are like, my needs are your needs. In other words, there is no separation of individuality. There is a fusion, and then this is the trauma bond. This is the codependent dysfunction pattern that tends to perpetuate it. And this becomes then an unhealthy or dysfunctional pressure, which the individual then must conform to, adhere to, or abide by to keep the relationship going. So then one becomes like the martyr. One then becomes angry. Then one becomes the self-sacrificer, and then the self-sacrificing in order to perpetuate and tolerate becomes the proliferated or valued state. I'm self-sacrificing. It's the Mother Teresa syndrome. I've given up my whole life for you. And then this becomes the idolatry state, the ideal state, the idolized state where, I sacrifice all this in order for the family, in order for the marriage, in order for the business. So this becomes then the marching anthem, if you will. It becomes the, the sort of emblazoned mission statement, but yet it is self-destructive, self-annihilating, and oftentimes leading to self-abuse, self-neglect, if, this then perpetuates and is not kept in check. Because as we know with relationships, they go in one direction. They are not static. They don't stay in one place. They're either going forward or they're going backward. They're not really always at a plateau or in a maintain. There's usually some sort of growth or regression. And unless there's sort of a really healthy reciprocity where both people are growing together and their lives are symbiotic in nature and not dependent in nature. So the covert narcissist is really about, just through either verbalization or just lack, assumptive needs being expressed, meaning this is your role and this is mine, his and hers, yours and mine. But rather than it being defined by autonomy, independence, and a healthy sense of I am, it is met by this sort of dysfunctional agreement, this subconscious, nonverbal agreement that if I hollow myself out and agree to take on your needs as my own, in turn, I will sacrifice myself, but I will ultimately need to get my needs met, so I will play these out in unconscious or subconscious ways and get them met in some place or another. You have needs, and if you have not been allowed or supported in having healthy ego needs, which means the need to be autonomous versus dependent, then you will not feel comfortable being autonomous, meaning independent, meaning self-governing, meaning on your own, responsible for self, self-esteem, acknowledging and valuing your talents, and being able to live by such. These then become repressed. These become extinguished. These become swept out of the picture. And then, in order to really perpetuate a relationship, these need to be then sacrificed. And then one eventually will become a sort of hollowed out individual or feeling empty, and then getting their needs met in subverted or subconscious ways, where, in other words, the need to be loved, acknowledged, and validated becomes alcoholism. The need for love, affection, and if it's not received, it becomes a starving of. The anorexia, the bulimia, the isolation, the CPSD, the black and white thinking that then typifies like the borderline, and then the manic behavior, where it's like swinging from one end to the other because there is not a healthy acknowledgement of independence. There is a dependency issue. One becomes dependent on alcohol. One becomes dependent on drugs. So depending on the shopping, dependent on, whatever it is that then takes up that role, versus a healthy accountability and a healthy acknowledgement and validation of boundaries and standards, and having that typify your relationship. So the dysfunction then tends to perpetuate and gets more pronounced with time. And so really then eventually there becomes a little angel on your shoulder where it's saying, hey, we want to get this in check. We need to redefine the pattern of the relationship. This dysfunction is no longer functioning. It's getting ugly. It's no longer, to be silenced. It's no longer, to be shamed. It's kind of like, when eventually the kids become spoiled, and then they leave the family, and then, they're just gone. They don't want to have anything part of the family, and they've missed family values, and we feel that the train is off course. And so really the way to health and the way to the healthy pattern is acknowledging and validating this, and not becoming ashamed and not becoming threatened by autonomy, by independence, by a healthy I am, and not being jealous, not being envious, because oftentimes this is another proliferation or experience with those people who are codependent, is they tend to then have jealousy over others. They become envious. Another person has what they want. And it's really a healthy I am or healthy independence, which they've been denying themselves, which this person is manifesting. And so they are basically, since their unconscious needs are not met, their healthy I am needs are not met, it's then acted out in the negative. It's acted out in the envy. And then, of course, the anger. Anger for allowing this to happen, or not knowing how to keep responsibility in play in the relationship. Not knowing how to keep a healthy reciprocity or a healthy independence in the relationship. So it becomes very uneven. It becomes very unbalanced. And eventually, the body is going to crave balance. It's going to crave a healthy I am. It's going to crave function. It just is. Eventually, it's the pendulum is going to swing the other direction and want to settle on a healthy congruency. And that is what being authentic is. It's being able to be authentic you and not having to take care of another's needs, but that once you're authentic you, their needs are met by you being autonomous, independent, and taking joy and pleasure in that, and not being threatened of you leaving them, or dysfunction plaguing the relationship and driving you away, driving a rift between the two of you. It is the embracing of such and being able to function in that level, in that realm, and not being threatened or feeling an element of dysfunction because of the dependency. And so in other words, and then it is understanding that there is this unconscious agreement. And so to become aware of the unconscious agreements that you have in this relationship or in your life, that I have then, instead of taking value and in my accomplishments and my autonomy, it's realizing where in my life have I agreed upon to take value in how well I please others. So versus having pleasure in your accomplishments and having that be yours and having others be theirs, is to acknowledge that perhaps that the narcissist is living vicariously through another. So how well they take care of their needs, how well they become who they want them to be versus who they are. So that is the whole control game. And so it is to recognize and validate that boundaries and standards need to identify and typify a healthy relationship. Being authentic versus being a people pleaser and taking care of others' needs is not where your own I am should be resting, because then your I am, if this person, is not either, validating of such, they're not pleased with you, they're dissatisfied, that means your I am goes down the tubes. That is not healthy. That, otherwise that's to perpetuate a life of uncertainty and perpetuate a life of low self-esteem and perpetuate a life of defense mechanisms where you're always coping and you're never being. This becomes very stressful. This becomes very, very unhappy. This becomes a vicious cycle. And so it's to understand that cycles like this should not perpetuate your I am. Cycles like this should not perpetuate your relationship. That is what's going to perpetuate dysfunction. You cannot live to cater to another's needs like this and have your own needs negated and devalued. If you do, it's to perpetuate the Mother Teresa syndrome, is to perpetuate codependency, where you are always living to please and hear, you know, you're always trying to get your valuation from another. And the buck has to be within your own I am. Your own I am has to be a value of self. It has to be the turning around of that and the living, and then the embracing of independence and the I am that is based within yourself. Otherwise, you know, it's the panic attacks. Otherwise, it's the feeling of over obligation. It's running your, you know, it's to commit to the crazy making, the brainwashing. It's to have the jealous mother, you know, that is, you know, a meshing of their children, and rather than allowing them to, you know, be raised independently, is to say, I'm jealous of you that you've got your needs met and I don't, because I have an unhealthy marriage with your father, so I'm therefore going to take it out on you because your father is using me and I can't stand to see you happy and independent, so I'm going to overcompensate and try to, you know, over-obligate myself to you and have a transactional relationship, and furthermore keep you dependent on me rather than embracing your independence the way the healthy function should live. So it's very interesting how this dysfunction plays out in generations and through multi-levels and layers and outgrowth of that family system, or even that organizational system, if this is taking place in a business, where you can have this dysfunction running in businesses as well that aren't based on empowerment, but are based on secrecy, that are based on low integrity, or based on the, you know, sort of, catering up to the high egos and not allowing the strength of all people to come together as one greater whole. So it really is like the microcosm as well as the microcosm, the greater picture as well as the lower, you know, the smaller picture. So really the goal then is to realize that if you're being disapproved of by others, but yet you're okay with your I am, not that you're hurting others, but that even though others may not approve of who you are, because you're not meeting, you know, their control needs, you're not catering to their needs to be in their control, it's to embrace a healthy I am. You can't please all of the people all of the time. To do so would be to just, you know, set yourself up for failure and disappointment. So it's to look at the dynamics and really to have rigorous honesty within yourself and to say, you know what, I can't have my self-satisfaction, my I am, my self-evaluation based on how well I'm there and take care of this person's needs, and, you know, where they're not able to take care of their own. They need to be able to say, hey, you know, this, you know, you have to take care of this here. You know, it is, you know, I can't take up that on my shoulders. You know, it's time for, it's making your burden too light. You know, you're too light here. You need to take this on a little bit, even if it feels a little heavy. It's way too heavy over here. So it's to live the life in balance and to live the life in function. It's being able to communicate that in a non-judgmental, non-threatening way. It's to acknowledge what is yours and what is mine. Not taking what is someone else's pain and making it your own. It's to, you know, live, it's not to live out of that, you know, where one has empathy and the other isn't. You have to acknowledge what is someone else's and give it to them, what is yours and not somebody else's, and take that as your own, and to know the difference between the two and be okay with it, and be okay with the two, personality types, characteristic roles coming together and being the best you can be within that definition, within that healthy identity, that healthy I am, and not having it so it swings in those extreme sort of threatening roles where you're threatened into your I am. The fear cannot promulgate the relationship, otherwise it will definitely become typified by dysfunction, and it will continue the vicious cycle. Exit the cycle, allow others to have what's theirs, don't take on what is not yours, and furthermore, don't push what is yours onto others. Boundaries and standards. It's your buddy, peace and harmony with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Love you.